Hey friends, I'm Steve with Surfskatelove, and in this video I'm going to cover how to properly clean and maintain your Surfskate wheel bearings. And I'm doing this video because just yesterday I posted a video on how to maintain your Surfskate, and I went over a lot of different details including the wheel bearings. And on that video I received a lot of great feedback from some people who pointed out a few things about how I went about the wheel bearings that I wanted to address in a follow-up video. And they're all things that I've just picked up either from watching other riders do it or even from watching other YouTube videos that gave me incorrect instruction, and I just want to make sure that I'm passing on the correct information to you so that we're properly maintaining things without damaging anything. So very quick thank you to the people who gave me great feedback. First of all, Sharif El Kadi, I think that's how you pronounce your name, Sharif, out of Egypt. He's got a really great YouTube channel that I'm going to include a link to in the video description below. Subscribe to his channel. He knows what he's talking about. And then also want to thank Mario Lenta and Justin Frank, and there's a couple other people who just have letters for their YouTube profile, so I don't know who you are, so whoever you are, thanks so much for your very helpful feedback. I really appreciate it. Okay, so let's get into this. First of all, let's talk about the ingredients you're going to need to take care of your wheel bearings. You're going to need a skate tool to take them off in the first place. We've got some isopropyl alcohol to clean them. We've got a Bones bearing cleaner. We've got some Bones speed cream, which is what I use for lubricant. We've got just a cleaning rag, and then we've got a hair dryer. Now, the first thing I want to say is this is a trick that I learned from a friend of mine, Gavin, who's been riding for, I think, 20 years or longer on anything from skateboards to longboards to long distance pumping. He knows what he's doing. And the very first thing that he recommended is what he does after every ride is he'll get in and he'll just wipe this down. And he says that'll give you more life out of your wheel bearings. So you can use just a little bit of water. You do not want water to be getting in your bearings, but if you use just a little bit, I think you can keep it out of there. But we can also just use a little bit of alcohol on a cleaning rag after every ride and just go in here and just wipe everything down in here. So we're just removing dirt and grime and oil and grease after every ride to keep our bearings as clean as possible. So that's our first tip here. Now we're going to just take off all these wheels so we can get access to our bearings here. So we just take off this nut here, and we take off the nut, and we're going to find a speed ring. The purpose of speed rings is to reduce friction, make your bearings roll easier. They are particularly important on, and this one came off on the bottom of this, but they're particularly important to use against your hanger because it's hard for companies to machine this edge well, and that can create some friction on your bearing. So if you don't have enough speed rings to do one on the hanger and then one on the outside bearing, as a rule of thumb, just do one on the hanger and you can get away with not doing one on top there. So those are your speed rings. Now to remove your bearings, it's very simple. You're going to just put about half of this bearing over the axle like so, and then we're going to just twist and pull, and that bearing's going to pop right out. And we're also going to have a spacer that goes between the bearings as well. So we'll go ahead and remove this one, and we'll go ahead and get all of these wheels and bearings off. The next step is to remove the rubber caps so that we can clean them. Now you'll notice on some bearings that this only has a cap on one side. This doesn't even have a cap. Here's another set that has caps on both sides. And I've heard some riders say that when they clean these, they don't even remove the inside cap. They just remove that outside cap. And as you can see from these, this is the ones I just took off of this Yao Teahupoo. These are actually Yaos as well, but are different. They have the two different caps on them. And then these are Tecton bearings, and you can see how these are kind of the same with this, where on this design, something like this, you really are just going to remove one of these caps and nothing to remove on these sides. Okay, so how we're going to remove these washers is we're going to very delicately, using either a razor blade or some guys will use like a safety pin, but whatever you can do to very delicately get your blade or your pin, whatever, right here to gently pull this rubber cap out. And there we have it. Here's our little rubber cap, and there's our bearings. So let me go ahead and remove all of these rubber caps. Okay, so we've got all of our caps off of our bearings, and let me say just a really quick word about these caps, because one of the comments that I received was, a guy pointed out that you probably don't want to be washing these in isopropyl alcohol because it could damage them over time. Personally, I don't know how critical that is. He recommends using dishwashing soap instead. Now, my experience with these is you can kind of, most of the time, just really just wipe them down down with a cleaning rag, but sometimes you'll get a lot of buildup on those, particularly if I've been riding after it's been wet, and I will get some rust on those, in which case you might want to clean it a little bit better than just kind of a basic wipe down here. But however you do it, you do want to get these clean because you will get residue on those. And now let's talk about how to clean our bearings. Here's where we get our Bones bearing cleaner. Now this is another silly little thing that I got to correct from my video yesterday, because take this out and basically your bearings stick onto this, and then you put isopropyl alcohol inside this, and that's how you clean them. It's a very slick little tool. And it's funny because when I started getting into longboarding last year, I researched all this, and the video that I watched of the guy doing this did the exact same thing I did, where he had these all stacked like this. Now this is kind of a silly boneheaded thing. Once you understand how it works, it's really quite obvious. But how this really is supposed to work is you put a bearing on and then a spacer between each bearing, and that allows the alcohol to flow more freely between these bearings and make sure we get them cleaner. I don't know how critical that is, because really I think you're going to get alcohol in there regardless. Maybe this, is even an unnecessary step, I don't know. But the bottom line is, here is your correct way to use a Bones bearing cleaner. So thank you guys for pointing this out. Just like so. And then we will screw this on here. And then we're going to put isopropyl alcohol. And by the way, you don't want to use alcohol that's less than 90%. So we're going to pour some in here. I don't think it takes a whole lot. And then we will screw this cap on here, and we will just shake this up. Now you may want to let this soak depending on how long it's been since you've cleaned them and how bad they are, but I really just think you can kind of just shake this good and do a pretty good cleaning on them. Oh, and while we're on that, just really quickly, how often should you be doing this cleaning? I've researched a lot on this, and you have a wide range of opinions on this. Some people will say you should be doing this every 3 to 4 months. Other people will say 1 or 2 times a year is plenty, but you really don't need to do this a whole lot. Okay, so now that we've got these clean, we're gonna go ahead and take these out, and our next step is to dry them. And that was another critical point that Sharif from Egypt pointed out, was that I probably didn't dry these long enough. Now, personally, I think that alcohol evaporates pretty quickly, and Sharif was recommending that you even set these out in the sun to dry for a couple hours, or to even use a hair dryer. So I don't know how critical that is, but the principle is you do not want moisture in these. So we could go ahead and just dry these off a bit, and then if you want to make dang sure that you're not getting moisture in your bearings, we can just lay these out and use a hair dryer to dry them. Okay, so now that we've got these all clean, our next step is to lubricate them and then put them back together. Now here's another point on lubricating them that somebody else pointed out. On this particular set, you'll notice that I did not remove anything from the back here, so what I'm going to point out right now is not relevant to this set. But if I was using a set of bearings like this that has 2 rubber caps on both sides, and I had these removed, before you lubricate, put one of the caps on so that you can then lubricate the top side, and that will prevent your lubricant from escaping out. When we apply our lubricant, and like I say, I use Bones Speed Cream, but I think there's a number of different things that you could use on this, but it really doesn't take much. I think maybe, honestly, just 1 or 2 little drops in each of these should be plenty. And now that we've got them lubricated, we'll go ahead and put these caps back on. And these go on very, very easily. They just snap back on, just like so. Okay, now that we've got our bearings cleaned and lubricated, our next step is just to reinstall them back into the wheels. Now, this is the most critical point that I wanted to correct from yesterday's video, because, like I said, I just picked up a lot of this stuff either from other riders or other tutorial videos, and in my last video, you'll see that I was putting these back in by shoving them in with my tool. A couple people pointed out that you could be damaging your bearings. Personally, I think that this tool right here, I can see how that's going to go in and hit those bearings and possibly damage them. but a lot of times I'll just use like a rounded end of a screwdriver, in which case I think you're really just contacting that metal inside there. So however you do it, I think the principle is we do not want to be pushing on that rubber cap at all. So the recommended way to do this is very, very simple. First of all, we're going to take a speed ring, put that on our hanger, and then we're going to just put a bearing on. Now we want this side to be inside, obviously, and this outside, in which case we're going to just put this bearing like so. And now I'm going to just shove this wheel on. So essentially we're just using the axle to put this on. So it's very, very easy. And now we've got our bearing properly installed without pushing it in a way that's going to damage that bearing. And to get the second one in, we're going to go ahead and just put that bearing in again with this one on the inside. And then we're going to put our spacer right there. And we're going to just shove our wheel on like so. And there we go. And then with that, we just put our other speed ring on. And that's how it's done. So let's go ahead and get all of the rest of these installed. Oh, a really quick point on this. Some bearings you can cinch your nut completely tight and it will still get a lot of spin. That's the case on these Synetics here on this Yow. But in some cases, the bearings are, if you tighten it down too much, the wheels aren't going to spin, in which case you have to just kind of loosen up your nut a little bit. But that depends on your bearings. In this case, we can cinch these down tight. And there we have it. That's how you clean your bearings. Again, thanks to all my viewers who gave me really great feedback on that, and I hope you find this useful in maintaining your bearings.